Hey there, Seattle sports fans, specifically Seattle Torrent fans. Welcome to a live edition of the 206 Sports Collective. Had a few technical difficulties, so sorry for anyone that was waiting on us. If you are watching the recording, we are going to talk about the Torrent, the week that was. 3 games, one pretty epic win, and then things took a little bit of a turn, including Ava, unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about some injuries for the Seattle Torrent. But the first topic that we're actually going to talk about is we know the end of the season is coming up, Ava, and there was actually a trade from for one player from the Torrent that I really had high hopes for. Another player who's an international player who I've always had on my radar. But let's just break it down here. Ava Wood, the creator and founder of 365 Hockey Girl, alongside me, Eric Ayala, your founder of Black Rosie Media. We are going to talk about the trade that happened. Jesse Eldridge out and Theresa Schafzahl in for the Seattle Torrent.
Yeah, what a trade. Not only the first trade in Torrent history, but like a huge trade. I mean, we look at Jesse Eldridge, tied for second in scoring on the Seattle Torrent team, tied with Alex Carpenter. So when you look at this trade, it's like we're trading away one of the most productive forwards on this team. So, yeah.
I mean, and I think, honestly, what you just said there, Ava, is going to continue on as we talk throughout this episode, because we really have to figure out where the Torrent are, right? This is all about a team that is in the bottom of the standings. We do power rankings every time we record the 206 Sports Collective and the Seattle Torrent episodes. And we've been talking about the Torrent at the bottom of the standings basically all season here. Striatic, hey, Brian, good to see you, saying, gonna miss the pink scrunchie. There's a great story at training camp where Brian actually got to ask Jesse Eldridge about that. We've talked about this before. I've had her on other programs where I was covering Seattle sports and Seattle hockey specifically. And I mean, this is a power forward here, right? Now, the thing about Theresa Schafzahl comes from the University of Vermont. I actually got to call one of her hockey games when I was doing Hockey East games. Another great player playing for her national team, and I think does have that dominant power forward ability as well. And I honestly think that although you're trading away Jesse Eldridge, I think, like oftentimes is the case, Ava, with expansion teams, this honestly could be an opportunity for Schafzahl to come in and have an even bigger impact and a bigger role on a team that needs high impact, high octane offensive players.
I agree. This is a huge opportunity for her. As well as when you look at forwards, you can't always look at offensive stats. I know they're forwards. You can't always look at offensive stats. A lot of the talk around Theresa Schafzahl has been her defensive ability. And GM Megan Turner specifically said that Schafzahl was picked to fit in with his Torrent identity. So, yeah, I think Theresa Schafzahl could be a really great fit for Seattle Torrent, and I'm really excited to see her make her Torrent debut tonight.
Yes, that's right. We're doing this as a live stream because we had some scheduling conflicts, mostly on my side of things, but there is a Seattle Torrent game tonight. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see them take on this Montreal Victoire team. And then they play Boston again in just a few nights' time. And of course, we know that Theresa Schafzahl coming from that Boston squad. So this is going to be really interesting. It's also interesting to see the Seattle Torrent, in the bottom of the standings, making a trade with a team at the tippy top.
I mean, I think this made so much sense for both of these teams, because when you're doing a trade, it's normally because two teams have different things that they want, right? You know, what Boston Fleet wants is a playoff team. What Seattle Torrent wants is some type of team identity going into next year if they can't make the playoffs this year, which to me, that's what this trade signals. I mean, everything we saw within the past week, Torrent was so back until Torrent was so over, with all the developments within the past week, which we're going to get into. As you've been saying, this isn't a playoff team.
Right. I mean, yeah, we were being as kind as we could for as long as we could, but I think the writing is definitely on the wall. Austriatic saying Seattle fans will learn the German pronunciations. Welcome, Teresa. I hope I'm doing it justice. Again, called a game of hers in while she was at Vermont with the Catamounts and was super impressed. For anyone who knows that program and is familiar with the name Amanda Pelkey, who is someone now that we see in the higher ups of women's pro hockey. But the fact that she was on pace, in, I believe, roughly her junior year and definitely by her senior year to overcome and supersede some of Pelkey's stats, that's huge. So, yes, Schwabsal is is the closest I can get to the pronunciation. I always have fun trying to pronounce the players' names as closely as perhaps their family might say it, or at least their home and home language or home country might say it. So it's going to be a fun one. But it's not just the trade. There were other roster impacts, and we're going to talk about those league-wide on our league-wide episode or league-wide podcast at Even Strength. But for the sake of talking about the Seattle Torrent, we also have to talk about injuries. Now, the last time I checked, just before we went live, Ava, the PWHL, at least not for the Seattle Torrent game against Montreal, they hadn't put up the pregame rosters and lineups yet. We did see some reporting that there would be some players out for Montreal. And we'll see what that looks like for the Seattle Torrent, but I'll keep looking here. But there have been some pretty significant injuries. Now, the last time we recorded, I don't think it was official yet that Hannah Bilka was on long-term injured reserve and would be basically shut down for the season. Again, did talk about that on At Even Strength with Rachel Donner. But while I have you here, Ava, our Seattle Torrent expert, reactions to losing Bilka.
I mean, it's an unfortunate situation for her. I really feel for her. What an amazing Olympics she had. And for her to have injury this season, as well as what she went through last season. Yeah, just sending love her way and hoping she gets better. But she's an amazing player, and I hope to see her on the Seattle Tour next year as well.
Yeah, 100%. And, that was announced before the game, the win that we saw on March 11th against Boston. And I loved talking to Rachel about all of the predictions that we make. Because, when I do hockey podcasts, Ava, you and I, we say the Seattle Torrent have to win if. And we're going to do that again later on today's episode. But we said a bunch of things that we actually kind of saw. We kind of saw some things get cooking. We saw some key players, Mikyla Grant-Mentis. Oh, sick, nasty, filthy goal. Alex Carpenter being Alex Carpenter. I mean, what more do you want? Snodgrass stepped up in a big way. So let's first talk about that win. We'll talk about some other injuries that have come in the last handful of games. The last 3 games, unfortunately, for the Seattle Torrent have been, riddled with injury. But let's first talk about the win. We'll start with the win. What was your main takeaway from this? I mean, the vibes were also good, which is something else that we talked about on the last episode.
I mean, this was an amazing win because it was a game where it felt like everything was working for Torrent. I mean, Corrine Schroeder, amazing in net. Alex Carpenter has been so consistent this entire season. She has been so consistent this entire season. She's been the leader that Torrent needs. Mikyla Grant-Mentis, obviously, everybody's going to talk about the jailbreak goal. The jailbreak goal was amazing, but she was jumping off the page the entire game. And then Danielle Serdachny, and shout out to Natalie Snodgrass with the assist on that 3rd goal. That was just a huge win for Torrent. And, the fans, amazing as always. 13,000 fans on a Wednesday. Too easy for Seattle women's hockey fans.
I mean, you've talked about it before on the program. Wednesdays seem to be good days for the Seattle Torrent, specifically to play at home. So that was a good game. We got to see Corrine Schroeder in net, something that we've been talking about. Unfortunately, the good times did not last for the Seattle Torrent, and they did take 2 losses throughout the season. or throughout the last week, excuse me. One was a 4-1 loss to Minnesota. Now, we talked about this Minnesota squad, right? I mean, like, how much can you continue to say? It's like rinse and repeat with this Minnesota team. They're physical. They're lethal offensively. They utilize their speed. They work their goalies in tandem so that each one is just as sharp as they can be every single outing. But we also know, going back to the physicality, that, it's become something that is a little bit of a calling card, not even just specifically for Minnesota, but with a specific Minnesota player who is also an Olympic gold medalist in Britta Curl. And wouldn't you know, after a great game, everyone's talking about that jailbreak goal, like you said, Ava, from Mikyla Grant-Mentis, and then takes a really big hit in this loss to Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, so we can talk about the hit specifically. It was called for boarding because Mikyla Grant-Mentis' back was turned. And yeah, really tough to see Mikyla Grant-Mentis go out that way. I believe she's currently listed as day-to-day. But yeah, just a lot of high tensions, honestly, between both teams throughout this game, including a hit on Lexi Gia actually in the first period that wasn't called. So there was pretty much high tensions throughout this game. And yeah, Minnesota has pretty much dominated Seattle Torrent this entire season, and Minnesota looks really scary right now.
Yeah, they're a solid team. And I will say this. I think that the Torrent, to your point about Minnesota and how Minnesota has played against the Seattle Torrent, and we'll get into some stats about that in a little bit. But I will say, when you're playing a team that we know is physical, even borderline physical, like Minnesota, I do want to see the Torrent kind of get in their physicality bag a little bit more. I like the sandpaper. And I do think there are players that can do that. I just don't know that, like a lot of other things with the Seattle Torrent, is consistent. Now, for me, there's a little bit of a difference between playing gritty and kind of finding goals, which we see from the Torrent, and playing more of a sandpaper, physical first, wanting to use the body at every turn. Now, there are some Torrent players that can do that. We have seen the Torrent players at times in little pockets play that way. But a lot of times my eye test is telling me that the Torrent are reacting to physicality instead of being the ones to initiate. And again, being physical in a physical sport like hockey, it doesn't mean you have to go overboard. I'm not talking like Bash Bros style, like gooning it up. But you have to know, with a fast team and a physical team like Minnesota, you're going to have to go, as I like to say, stick to stick, body to body. And that's where your positioning has to be, because you're going to have to win those kinds of battles where you are right up in the grill, going mano-a-mano, quite literally, against a team like Minnesota. And again, those are just some things that hopefully, as this Torrent team moves on, Ava, we'll see with more consistency.
Yeah, I resonate with a lot of what you're saying, because when I think of this Torrent team, it feels like they are often setting the tone. They're often responding, right? They're getting scored on first and having to respond. When I think of this team's identity, the first word that doesn't come to mind is like super tough and physical. And I'm not trying to be shady, because like obviously every team has a different identity. That doesn't have to be Torrent's identity necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, I would like to see them set the tone a little bit more, whatever that means for Seattle Torrent.
Right. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly what that looks like. I said, since this is a live show, we were going to give you updates, and I have been checking, and we do indeed have an update. The Seattle Torrent have posted their lineup for today. And as of right now, the projected lineup is Alex Carpenter centering Theresa Schafzahl on the left side, with Danielle Serdachny on the right.
Oh,
yes, in that first pair. In that first pair. Your second pair from our projected lineup, Julia Gosling centering Natalie Snodgrass on the left, Lexi Agia on the right. Yes. Then we have Sydney Langseth and Jenna Buglioni as your quote-unquote bottom two centers, Lily Delianidis and Mara Wagner on the left side, Jada Habish and Brooke Bryant on the right. That rounds out your forwards. For your goaltenders, it does look like it's going to be Murphy starting with Schroeder as the backup. It just seems that
I hate Schroeder.
we talked about this before. I mean, it just is one of those things that's a little bit mind-boggling to me, because Ayala, another Seattle goaltender, someone known as the German gentleman, I think Corrine Schroeder needs to have starts to have consistency in net. But even if we put that to the side, Ava, goaltending does not appear to be the issue here. But my argument for Schroeds is she's a tried and true professional. And that matters when you have to fight through the dog days of a season that's not going your team's way. And so it's not a knock against Hannah Murphy. I just don't understand why there seems to be this demerit for Corrine Schroeder.
My only thought here is that they have this young goaltender in Hannah Murphy. I'm not saying that Corrine Schroeder's old, but they look at Hannah Murphy and they say, hey, we're already at the bottom of the standings. Looking forward towards expansion, we can only keep one goalie. Why don't we develop her and give her starts? That's the only reasoning I could see. And I don't know why they would necessarily choose Murphy over Schroeder. That's just the way I'm reading this situation currently.
Yeah, it's strange. It's not bad. It's just interesting. It's extremely interesting. Now, that being said, the only other thing I can put out here as a possible, going off of kind of what you were saying there, Ava, is that not only do you want to give Hannah Murphy starts, but if you have to win games once you're already on the other side of elimination, then maybe that's when we'll see Corrine Schroeder work to get these wins. Because just real quick, including today's game, right? If I counted correctly, which is a very big if, but I believe there are still 11 games left in the regular season. So at some point in time, the Seattle Torrent are going to be playing to win out via the gold plan, which we've talked about. So that was the only thing that I wanted to say, but then I'll let you go back to your point.
No, that makes a lot of sense. The only other thing I wanted to add was, in terms of why would they pick Murphy over Schroeder, is because it could just be coming down to budget. Like, I don't know exactly. We don't know how much players are getting paid, but we know Schroeder was signed as one of the first 5 signings, and we know that Hannah Murphy is likely on a rookie contract. So maybe they're just looking at it and they're like, hey, looking towards next season, this is the player we want. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
I mean, that's a wild thing to do. Like, I kind of hear where you're going with that, but that's a wild thing on multiple levels for me, because it's like if you're thinking about that for next year, that means that you're okay with burning that cap, with that hit to the cap this season. That makes no sense to me.
I don't know.
That part of it. Like the math would not be mathing for me in that particular scenario and situation. I think sometimes, yes, the writing can be on the wall, but yeah, I don't know. But this is what Stratic's saying. They need to figure out if they want to protect Murphy from expansion, or are they doing a rope-a-dope? And it's like, hey, Murphy's our go-to. So if we're expecting an expansion, don't take Schroeds, take Murphy. I don't know. That's also wild. That's like a wild way to think about it. I feel like all of these are hypotheticals first and foremost. Don't clip this. Don't put us out there. And we're not speaking the gospel truth. We are trying to work out in real time why we think Corrine Schroeder is not worth more than a start every 5 games. It feels like something like that. Yeah, it's weird. I'm saying everybody got choices. There's a lot of choices to be made. It's a wild time, but that's what we're seeing here. Okay, as far as the lineup, Wilgren on the left, Barnesy on the right for your top defensive pairing.
Wait, Barnes is back?
Yeah, that's what, according to this projected lineup, that's what we're seeing. Again, see, we didn't even get to our full injury lineup here, but we can talk about that in a little bit. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Barnesy back in the lineup. That's good to see. We have Mariah and Emily Brown, Megan Carter, and Aneta Teralova as your third pair defender, Teralova. And then Lobdell also dressing. So the scratches are Bilka and Knight, who, of course, are both on long-term injured reserve. Carly Jackson not dressing as that third goaltender, and Mikyla Grant-Mentis, who is listed out with an upper body injury.
Wow. Well, good news, because after watching the game with Barnes going down, I thought for sure she was going to be out, but I guess she's not.
Yes. No. Oh, hey, friend. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us live. But thinking about planning next season a team roster with another expansion and draft is just giving me a headache. Yeah. That's all I can say. I have no other analysis at this time. Expansion in this league is wild, Striatic says. It could be all of the above. Oh man, Brian also saying, or Striatic also saying, no, Barnes, don't rush back. Listen, again, I'm assuming that this means that Barnesy is okay. This is the lineup. I'm going to double and triple check, quadruple check. Yes, March 19th, 2026, Place Bell. That's what it's showing us here, that Barnesy is going to be in the lineup. I'm using a different browser, so as soon as I can figure out how to get this up on the screen, I will definitely do that for y'all, because I love to share the screen. Here we go. I think I got it. Are you seeing it? There it is. This is what we're seeing. And so you can see the lines here that we just ran through, the forwards, and then the defenders. Kayla Barnesy right there. So that's what we're seeing. That's what has been put in the PWHL press room with the pregame. This wasn't available right before we started recording. It came in just as we started. So there you go. I think it's going to be interesting, obviously, to see Barnesy right now is on that top line. So is expected, just by way of how the projected lineup is, to get significant minutes, Ava.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for it.
Yeah. This comment made me laugh. Maya saying, if they have 4 expansion teams, chaos. They should do it, though.
It's going to be so chaotic, but at the same time, it's going to give us even more PWHL. So
That's true. I've also, as excited as I am, Rachel and I have talked about, it's just really interesting. Like some of the storylines that followed the start of the PHL, as Marissa Tomei said in My Cousin Vinny, don't hold water. We were told we could only have 6 expansion teams, even though we were almost at like 15, 16 teams combined in women's pro hockey in North America, because there wasn't enough talent and we had to start small. And it's kind of wild that we're already at 8 teams in season 3 before we even finished season 3, and that there could be upward of another 4 teams in the next 2 seasons. Like, that's a lot of expansion. I've always thought the market, as in the talent for women's hockey, could handle that. I'm just like, okay, but remember when we said that we didn't have enough talent to fill these teams? Now what are we doing? And the chaos of an expansion draft every freaking year, that's wild. I have enough chaos in dealing with a very short off season for the WNBA because of the CBA negotiations, and this is giving me flashbacks for anyone who used to watch or does watch the NWSL. There was like a pocket of time where it was something similar, where it was like every year there was an expansion draft, and it was just insanity. It was like nobody knew what was going on. Every year you had to say goodbye to your besties, and it was wild. So we'll see what happens. But we've been talking about Kayla Barnes. Let's talk about what happened to Kayla Barnes, which seems to be a non-issue. She's in the lineup, but she did have an injury scare.
Yeah, that was during the game against the Toronto Raptors. Ella Shelton laid a hit on Kayla Barnes. There was a lot of discussion online about whether it was legal, whether it was not legal. I'm not a referee, but from my perspective, it looked legal just because they were skating in the same direction, but then I think some of the confusion was that, you know, it wasn't really close to the board. So Kayla Barnes kind of slid into the boards, but it didn't actually take place really close to the boards at all. So, and then Kayla Barnes was down for quite a while. They were even like preparing a stretcher. Eventually she didn't need it, stayed on the bench. So yeah, looked really serious in the moment. Looked like she was holding her arm, but she appears to be fine. So maybe just banged up.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll find out. We'll see them play at Place Belle tonight against Montreal. Again, we'll preview that game shortly. But I want to step away from the Seattle Torrent just for a moment here, because the queen, as far as I'm concerned, Sarah Nurse, had some very pointed, and I honestly think very accurate and overdue comments. And to come from a player of the stature of, I'm sorry, there's like this very pregnant looking blue jay right outside my window. I love springtime and all of the wilds just coming out to play. I have all my windows open and my door open. Anyway, hello blue jay. Okay, but on a serious note, Sarah Nurse had some very very thoughtful and I thought very overdue comments on officiating. And when you have someone of that caliber, of that stature, talking about officiating, something that has been a question mark, we saw a lot of suspensions come through, but these suspensions or fines are coming after the play. And a lot of people, like you said, with regard to another matter, there's a lot of discourse on social media after the fact, and kind of talking about that the disciplinary committee that made a ruling yesterday, that's, I guess, fine and well, but why aren't we taking care of these things in real time? Minnesota's Peyton Anderson suspended, Minnesota's Britta Curl-Salemi and Maggie Flaherty from Montreal, Boston's Lauren Gable, all of those players received fines and disciplinary reaction, or disciplinary action upon a review. But we've heard this before, Ava, not just this season, but throughout all 3 seasons now of the PWHL. And to echo what Sarah Nurse was saying, she honestly doesn't believe that players and even officials know what the actual ruling is. And this goes back to something that predates any PWHL games, because some people know that the PWHL was looking to be innovative in how they approached body contact in women's hockey. Body checking, specifically open ice hits, have always been illegal at every single level of women's hockey. And you can say things about missed officiating, but that's always been a standard. And with the PWHL opening things up, one of the things in the year 1 of the league that I'd been reporting on, and Rachel and I have talked about on now over at Even Strength, but even on a previous podcast, is there wasn't really a lot of time, well, literally, to get the league off the ground, right? But also, when you have a 6-month on-ramp to your first game, that means you only have, at best, that amount of time to find your officials, train your officials, find your officials, create your rule book, and train your officials on that rule book, and then reinforce that. Another wrinkle that I believe you and I, Ava, talked about is that they got rid of coaching challenges. And so all of that happens in like the central, office or whatever. And that's also a little bit strange to me, because it takes away the ability for a team to independently stand up for their players. So there's just a lot, and Sarah Nurse addressed it. And I do think this is something that, if not before the playoffs, that the PWHL is going to have to really refine going into next season.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, because it's getting to the point when you have, again, somebody like Sarah Nurse speaking out about this. We know that fans are always going to criticize the refs, but like fans, it does affect the product of the game. It affects safety, and it affects the actual product of the game that you're marketing. So, yes. I mean, this is capitalism, And if you want to make the product better, at the end of the day, you have to pay people better. And that's not just the players, that's also the referees. That could also be more training for referees. Again, I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I have to imagine with the correct amount of money, you can improve that, right? So I definitely think it's something that at this point, I think the PWHL probably knows is an issue, and the league is still young, and I definitely think that they can fix this, but it is definitely an issue right now.
Yeah, and I just want to go back again to Sarah Nurse's comments and give you the actual quote, or one of the quotes from her presser. I felt like this game was pretty out of control today from puck drop, and I don't think it ever got under control. I think that as we went through the game, everybody's skating around, not really knowing what a penalty is. That's kind of frustrating. I think us, the referees, nobody really knows what's a penalty. That gets frustrating because you go into a battle and you're like, could I get called here? Maybe. Could I not? Maybe. And, this was a game against the Ottawa Charge. We know historically the Ottawa Charge is definitely a physical team. Now, being physical and getting booked for physicality versus kind of seeking it, I think Ottawa Charge is a team that's going to play physical, and they'll force you to blow the whistle on whether you think it's a foul. I'm sorry, I'm in my basketball brain. Whether you think it's a penalty or not. And then you have, again, Minnesota, but a specific player on Minnesota that I think hunts out hits in a very different way. So, but for Sarah Nurse again to say this, that's huge. And I do hope that the league is paying heed, because we've heard this before. We've talked about this with Kristina Kaltankova. We've talked about this with players like Theresa Vanishova. Boston Fleet last year just missing out on a playoff spot. They talked about the inconsistency. They also talked about the schedule because we were coming off of World Championships and having to deal with all of that. So it's still early in the league. That being said, these are things that that you have to consider when you're looking to change rulings and things that have been in place in women's hockey. And quite honestly, that are kind of arbitrary and not well understood even throughout men's hockey.
Yeah, and I think the key thing here is when we look at the PWHL, it's the Professional Women's Hockey League, right? Professional, that being the key word. The key mission behind this league essentially is to deliver a level of professionalism that to this point, they would say has not been present in women's hockey. How do you make a league professional? You need to guarantee the refereeing is good. Otherwise, it doesn't feel professional.
Right. And it's something that I mean, in the early years, we're still in the early years, but the earliest years, AKA year one, that I've talked to Jana Hefford about. And the vision has always been to create a pipeline where more women are getting involved in hockey by way of the PWHL. And so some of the training, as she described it, is to that end. But also, to what end is the training going to deal with the inconsistencies that are being felt on the ice by the players, again, by the officials and the coaching staff, etc. And so I think it's going to be interesting. And, Dominica saying that, another thing is like putting the rule book up. That's been something, it's not just a PWHL issue, and I think they've done a better job, but there have been times throughout women's hockey that we haven't always understood completely what rule book is being used. Is it IIHF? Is it NCAA? Is it some kind of hybrid? Does a league have its own rules? And so these are things going on and on and on. But I do want to mention, especially because I'm in the middle of wrapping up CBA negotiation in the WNBA and following that. But also, I don't follow football, American football, very much. But I do know that the NFL, right, has been reported that they're looking at new referees and officials because they are in a collective bargaining agreement negotiation with their officials now. So I thought your point about making sure that officials are not only trained, but that they are paid and compensated appropriately is huge. I don't know about you, Ava. I don't want to speak for you ever, but here at Black Rosie Media, we are definitely pro-labor, okay? And these are the things that can be residual when you don't take care of the people that you expect to help bolster your product, whether that's players or officials. So I know we went a little off book here, but I thought it was a good conversation to have because unfortunately the Seattle Torrent have experienced some injuries. But the good news is that Barnesy is expected back into the lineup, so we like that. Mikyla Grant-Mentis, though, not back in the lineup. Okay, so we kind of, in a scatter roundabout way, talked about the last 3 games. 2 losses, that 1 win, that was the good one. The upcoming schedule is today. The Seattle Torrent will take on the Montreal Victoire. And then on Saturday, they will take on Boston. So as promised, Ava, let's start with Montreal. Again, these are the top 2 teams in the PWHL that the Seattle Torrent have to take on back-to-back. We'll start with Montreal Victoire. That's going to be today. We got to see the roster that they're going to roll out today. The Victoire right now are in 3rd place in standings points. Minnesota, with some big wins, was able to actually leapfrog into that number 1 spot. And again, we'll talk about that with Rachel more on At Even Strength and how the math works out there. But Minnesota, Boston, Montreal, Toronto in the top 4 spots. We'll get to that in your power rankings, Ava. But first, the Seattle Torrent, who are currently sitting in 8th place in the standings, the only team not to reach 20 points in the standings, can have success against the Montreal Victoire tonight, Ava, if...
I think they need to score first. I think they need to score first because Montreal just had its first loss of the season at Place Belle. You know that crowd in Place Belle is exceptional. You know how well Montreal plays at Place Belle. You know that they want to win after, quite frankly, not their best game against Boston, where they let Boston battle back at the end of that game to win in their last game. So I think you need to not make it quiet in there. Make the fans get a little, stressed. That's what I think. I think Torrent needs to set the tone. I think they need to score first.
I love that. Let's take a look again at this lineup that we're expecting. So if they have to score first, we'll look at, I don't want to look at the forwards exclusively. I wanted the defenders to be a part of this too, but anyone on the roster, including Hannah Murphy. I mean, hey, who says no to a goalie goal, right? Who is your best guess, or what's your intuition telling you with regard to who from the Seattle Torrent can perhaps get that first goal of the game?
I mean, there's so many players I'm excited about. Obviously, Theresa Schafzahl, but I'm really excited about this second line with Snodgrass, Gosling, and Ayala because Snodgrass and Ayala, I mean, Julia Gosling has been amazing for Torrent all season, but especially Snodgrass and Ayala have really stepped up for this team. And now being on that second line, I think Snodgrass or Ayala probably.
Honestly, with all due respect and knowing that I do love me some Theresa Schafzahl, and Alex Carpenter is Alex Carpenter. We've already established that. We established that every episode and will continue to, because she is that chick. I'll just say it that way for now. But I'm with you. I'm super excited. I feel like I've been calling Natalie Snodgrass's name and number since Jump. I'm like all about it. I've been watching her since her UConn days, so I'm all about that line. I am going to actually, though, because it could be Snodgrass, it could obviously be Gosling, right? I mean, is crushing it for the Torrent right now. But I'm gonna go with Ayala. Lexi Ayala, oh gosh, as much as we talk about the Torrent not being a consistent team, I do think she's and I mean probably including even some of the injured players, probably one of our definitely top 5, but I'd say probably top 3 most consistent players.
I agree. She's been extremely consistent, and she plays with fire, right?
Yes.
She's the player you watch every night, and you're like,
Sandpaper! I love it. That's that sandpaper I'm talking about. Before we give other predictions, I do want to come back to some things that Striatic was saying, and I do think these are great points about the topic we were talking about with officiating. Officials need to be exclusively working for PWHL games. Now, this is another thing that I think sometimes the PWHL, releases things, and I think the timeline, especially to start the league, was probably a factor here. But sometimes there are things that are announced and they seem like it's more about the announcement for the announcement's sake than the announcement for like the actual logistics sake. And one of the things that never quite made sense to me is that these officials are being pulled from multiple places. And I think that goes to what Striatic is saying here, but also potentially, I don't know the pay structure, but potentially what you were saying, Ava, because yes, it's kind of like working in sports media. I have a million jobs, as a lot of you know, because that's how I can pay my dang bills, right? Because as a contractor, you gotta get your money where you can get it. But when you have a one steady job where you're on staff and they take care of your benefits, then you don't have to learn multiple different, methods and mediums. And maybe we can apply that to officiating. So I think this is really interesting. So Striatic saying officials need to be exclusively working PWHL games, whatever the cost to achieve it. And also adding that he doesn't feel it's just about training, but, thinking about this as a fast game, it's chaotic, and you need more than training, you need experience. I think honestly the two go hand in hand, but I hear what you're saying, or I think I understand what you're saying. There's some professions you take like the bar exam the one time and you're good to go. But if you're operating on bodies, there are multiple times where you have to re-up your skills. And so perhaps that's Ava, I think what, Brian is getting at here, where it has to be the consistency, like the repetitions, right? And it's not about that one training, that one time, and then literally throwing a rule book at someone and expecting them to read through it and understand it. But like, is every official being put through their paces? So, Striatic, let us know in the comments. Let me know in the comments. Comments. if I got what you were trying to say right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, no one's 100% at this point in the season. So Lexi's probably a little injured right now too, but is still at it. I mean, that's that sandpaper. I love it. I love it so much. And we have some other comments, but I want to before we get to some other comments here, Ava, this is going to be a really significant game. Right now, I think the best you can do as the Seattle Torrent is if you're winning games, you're playing spoiler, right, for some other teams. So maybe you have a vendetta against somebody and you just go and win just because you can. That being said, we're going to have to really start talking about this gold plan in the next few episodes and what is the quote unquote smart play here. I don't know. I hate kind of the strategic part of losing games to win in the long run. I just really hate that about sports. But I mean, at this point, that might be what the Torrent have available to them. All right. But it's not just Montreal, a top 4 team in Montreal, but they're also going to take on a top 2 team in Boston. So we've seen them do it before, Ava.
No, that's the thing. That's the thing about these matchups, right? I mean, Montreal and Boston, 2 of the best teams in the league, but head to head, Torrent's pretty good against. I mean, they've only played Montreal once. Torrent has beat Montreal and Torrent has beat Boston. So yeah, standing's definitely not in Torrent's favor, but it's not like Torrent can't win.
It's not like, yeah, I'm with you there. We talked a little bit about goaltending. I'll lead off here with this for Boston. The Torrent can beat Boston again if I like what you said about scoring first, but I honestly think that they have to close the game well. I think that's more of a key here. This is a Boston team that we've seen, again, the Torrent play them tight. And just not be able to have enough gas in the tank at the end of games when they've fallen short in a really tight game against Boston, knowing that they just defeated them. Now, Boston was on a back-to-back, but I think they're going to have to, even if they don't get the start that they want, they have to really own the third period. Take control, take command, get to, really find it late in the game. Because, again, we talked about how this is a Torrent team that tends to react. I don't want to see that. Really, for a complete 60 would be ideal. But specifically, if things didn't go your way in the first 40, own and win the third. That's what I want to see from this Torrent team. So let's go this. We know that we did see Corrine Schroeder right in net for that last game against Boston. Do you want to see her again? Well, I mean, it looks like we're going to get Murphy tonight. So does that mean you think we go Schroeds on Saturday?
I mean, Schroeder has been successful against Boston. Yeah, I think either would be interesting. And obviously, the last time we saw it was Schroeder versus Levy, right? So I think either case it'll be a different matchup.
Yeah.
Also excited because we just had the trade with Eldridge to fleet. So this will be Torrent's first time playing against Eldridge as a fleet, and Schafzahl playing against her former team. So I think that'll be quite fun.
Yeah, either way, it's going to be a good time. All right, let's go back to some of these comments because I love that we're seeing some comments here. And that's why I love live shows. Everything combined with refs and experience is a big factor. How to remember the rules while you're watching everything on the ice. I mean, that's huge, right? And that's, I think, goes back to also what Striatic was saying about it's a fast game. So of course you need to reinforce the rules. It's hard. It requires time. I agree there, and I think this is also interesting. If I'm understanding this comment, it's like, hey, is there almost like a feeder system or like a junior hockey league where they can learn? And the answer right now on the women's side is no. The quote unquote junior side of things is NCAA. And I do think there's some crossover at times with NCAA officials, but we have to remember the NCAA schedule is very established. The PWHL schedule is very new, and there are intricacies. Again, it's a different NCAA rule book than an NFL rule book, than a PWHL rule book, than a junior hockey rule book, than a IIHF rule book, and I haven't even talked about all of the hockey leagues. So again, when you're an official, I think it also would behoove you to be smart about how many leagues you're actually officiating, because then that's multiple rule books that you have to learn. And then Striatic just saying, yes, we got it. Also says he talked to, or that O'Rourke talked about needing exclusive refs, and he would know his brother is an NFL ref. So there you go. I love that, that we're getting that insight. Okay, I love this. Anything can happen in sports. Montreal had a good time during the Olympics and improved scoring, but the Torrent still has a lot of great players that can deliver, of course, and that's why we watch the games. We weren't super high and optimistic last time we recorded before a Torrent versus Fleet game, but we always do our activity. The Seattle Torrent can win if, and we were right on the money, Ava. So this comment just reinforces why we always do that exercise. Even if our heart of hearts is saying this is not what we're saying is going to happen, but if they are going to get the win, this is what needs to happen. I just like framing the analysis like that. And then Striatic agreeing, of course, as everyone should, duh, that Sarah Nurse is a queen. Period. Like, we could put a period there, but specifically the comment says she's a queen for calling out the officials and officiating so publicly without crossing the line. Yes, she is. It was very diplomatic. It was very real. She didn't take unnecessary swipes or have to yell or scream or hoot or holler. I would have respected it either way, because I'm a hoot and holler kind of girl myself. Either way is fine, but it was very dignified, as a queen always is. So yes, kudos to you. Stick taps to Sarah Nurse. It's that time, Ava. We're gonna go over power rankings. And listen, guys, or folks, I don't like using guys generally speaking because we're not all guys. Anyway, listen, folks, we have a rundown that we use, Ava and I, and so I get to get a little sneak peek usually of the power rankings, and I cannot wait to go through this week's power rankings. I am loving the mix-up. Ava, let's get started. Who's at that number one spot?
It has to be Minnesota Frost. It has to be Minnesota Frost. I mean, the regulation wins against Seattle, New York. Like, New York took a beating in Denver, bro. Like, that's what it's been crazy about this, because it's not just that they're getting these regulation wins, but they're getting like these huge wins, right?
Yeah.
Like 5-0 against Ottawa. You scored 4 times in the first period. Like, I'm fearful. I'm fearful of the Minnesota Frost right
They're
now.
coming for the three-peat. They're coming for the three-peat.
Three-peat, unfortunately, is imminent. Unfortunately.
Oh man. All right, Minnesota, enough said.
Yeah.
All right, who do you have at number 2 in your power rankings?
Number 2, man, Toronto Scepters, bro.
Ooh, this is a team we've been saying they got to get hot. We've said it here. We've also said it at Even Strength. Are they gonna wake up and get off the mat or not?
They literally do this every season. That's what's so crazy about this. And because, like, I remember in the first season, everybody's like, why is Toronto so bad? Toronto's so bad. And then they went on that like crazy win streak, and like,
because of what the 13th forward at the Olympics won. Yeah. Like, that's insane. That's insane. Spooner was the 13th forward at the Olympics. I can't even. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
No, it's just impressive how they do this every year. Like, they do it every year. So yeah, Scepters are good now.
Let's go. Come on, Striatic. We go by vibes. What have you done for me lately vibes? And yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, the standings have significantly changed since the last time we recorded.
Yeah.
And the Scepters were like looking to hang out with Vancouver and Seattle like a week ago. And now they're in playoff contention. So I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all. Not this power ranking is off the hook. You're welcome.
It's not off the hook. It's accurate.
It is. Listen, power rankings are a week by week thing. It's not cumulative. Unless you're a team like Seattle, and there's not usually a lot of week by week movement, but we're not there yet. Okay, number three.
Okay, actually, with number 3, I'm gonna go Boston, which is a hot take because Boston did have some losses recently, but just because I was deciding between Boston and Montreal here, and Boston had that crazy comeback win, that was just aura. That was aura from Boston. Like, that was giving, like, it was just entertaining. So Boston gets the number 3.
I love it. Striatic saying, but Seattle almost beat the Scepters.
Listen. Seattle now. Like, I don't know.
Did they though? That's hilarious. Did they though? Also, in the immortal words of Brandy, almost doesn't count. Mm-hmm. All right. Who do you have next, Ava?
Number 4 is Montreal. And I will say, like, Ottawa almost was there for me. Ottawa was almost there for me, but then with that loss to Minnesota, they got bumped down.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, now we're talking about the teams that are, if the power rankings were coming at the end of the regular season, these would be the teams just outside of that little playoff bubble. Who do you have at number 5?
Oh, I think I put Ottawa there.
Ottawa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Ottawa, listen, they are a team where we've had them a lot lower than 5. And I think they're a team that, coming out of the Olympic break, right? And Dominika said this in I think a comment earlier. We're looking good, getting it together. Other teams, though, have started to surge. So I'm not mad at that. I like that. Okay. 6?
Vancouver.
Ooh,
right?
Okay.
Vancouver's on the up and up. They just had
They
just had the big win.
Okay. Well, I think we know who you have at 8. So that leaves only one team.
I love New York Sirens. I love New York Sirens. Like, they're on a little bit of a skid right now. That's why they're in 7, just because, they were in that playoff spot. Casey O'Brien gets injured. Yeah. Taylor Girard gets injured.
Oh, that's a brutal one. That's brutal.
Yeah.
I love Taylor Girard. That's brutal. Yeah.
I think they could come back, but just like this week was not their best week, which is why they dropped. And then Torrent at the bottom. As always.
Yeah.
Striatic Scepters deserves that number 2. Come on now. For what they've done since it had like 14 points in 6 games. I think that was the number I saw. 14 points in 6 games. Like, they deserve number 2.
I think so. Troy Ryan's fighting for his job right now.
Yeah.
So. I love it. Hey, we do these power rankings every week. This is is this our first live show of 206? Maybe first, maybe second. I think we did one live show before, but now that we're in our groove, it's the first one in a while. So you're going to have to tune into the next episode of 206 Sports Collective, where we will be breaking down the Seattle Torrent and the week that is to come. Again, Montreal tonight, they'll be at Place Belle taking on the Victoire, and then have Boston over the weekend. Of course, at Even Strength, which is our encompassing women's hockey show, we will have the results from this, so you're not going to want to miss that episode. It will go live and stream and be available audio and on YouTube on Saturday morning. But Ava, we're going to start wrapping up the show. Last thoughts here before we get going.
No last thoughts. I still love Torrent. It might seem a little over now, but I still love Torrent. We're in here for the long haul. I also want to plug, I'm going live right after this at 3:45 on the 365 Hockey Girl YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a watch along of the game. Yes, please come through. It'll be fun. We're just going to be having fun, chatting, responding to some comments. So yeah, come through.
I love it. Striatic is ready to come with the fire. I love that. But it's going to be a good game. We'll see if the keys that we had to this game will indeed be how the Seattle Torrent gets back into the win column. And again, we will recap this game and much more on At Even Strength. That is with Rachel Donner and I. We record on Fridays, and it will be live for you, ready on Saturdays. And then also check over at Black Rosie Media. If you don't want to watch on YouTube or listen to audio only, we will have a summary of all of our podcasts, including 206 Sports Collective for today and the At Even Strength podcast that will be up on blackrosiemedia.com. Sleepy time. That's right. You're at least 6 hours ahead of us now, or Eastern time, I should say, more for both Ava and I. But listen, we appreciate you hopping on for our live stream. And now it's time for you to head over to 365 Hockey Girl and get ready for the watch along. I guess you have some time, right? To get some snackies, maybe take a quick little walk around the block, or just go to sleep and watch the replay for you, Dominica. Yeah. But either way, thank you for joining us here. Go check out 365 Hockey Girl, and Ava and I will be right back here on Black Rosie Media next week to recap these games and then get you ready for the long stretch that is likely going to be the Seattle Torrent trying to rack up points so they can win that number one pick. And if and when that happens, the off-season debates as to who Seattle should take, I cannot wait. Thank you. As I always do on a Seattle hockey show, I want to remind you, be kind to yourself. It's a reminder for me as well. That's actually why I started saying this. And when you can expand that, joyous aura, extend that to other people. We got to spread the love. It's the Brooklyn way, yes, but it should be the way of us all. Hold fast, stay true, loud and proud we say, let's go Torrent. Make sure you check out that 365 watch along, and we'll catch you once again here next week on the 206 Sports Collective. For Ava Wood, I am Erica L. Ayala. Peace out, everybody. Bye. Thanks for coming.